because of their own shame, their own issues with this. But sometimes the kid's problem is the open door, the invitation for dad to really begin to address this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could be naive, but I have hypothesized that the larger percentage of dads, always a population that are, shackled in shame and therefore aren't doing anything. I think there's a larger population of dads who are, in my generation of dads in their 40s, who just don't have a perspective on digital they all fully appreciate, because in their brain they were exposed to the 2018 format after all of the neurological development that their 14-year-old sons are now being. Okay, all right. Hey everybody, hi, I'm Chris McKenna from Covenant Eyes. I'm so happy to be here this afternoon. This is at a different time of when we typically do our Facebook Live sessions here, but nonetheless, we are thrilled to have our guest here this afternoon, albeit different time zone for who we're speaking to today. Lisa Taylor is joining us today from New Zealand. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Wednesday for me, Thursday for you. I always had to be so specific in our emails to say what time and day that we were actually meeting. I'm glad we've got this figured out. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, Lisa and I are going to talk about a topic that I'm just really hopeful that for those of us who are joining us today, and as you share this with others, that will provide great encouragement and support for a population of individuals sort of under this umbrella of pornography and struggling, that are often under-resourced, under-recognized, and just they need more in terms of love and care and support. And that's exactly what Lisa's going to explain and try to give us some answers to some of those things. But if you're joining us today, please leave a comment. We have individuals who can help answer questions that you have. If you need pointed towards a particular resource or whatever it is, we have a great team that will help answer those as we're speaking here today. So let us know who you are, where you're from, and share this with anybody who you think would benefit. So Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and just give you an opportunity to just briefly introduce who you are, because I know we have a lot that we want to cover today. And so go ahead and share with us if you don't mind.
Thanks, Chris. I gotta just say how much I really appreciate what you guys do for the community. And Chris and I have gone back and forth over the years a number of times, because we're both people that wear different hats.
That's right.
In different settings. So Chris and I know each other more as people who go out and speak to parents and to kids about the digital dangers out there. And my husband and I are huge fans of Chris and his work, and we send people to his website. We send people to Covenant Eyes constantly, and so I've had a bit of back and forth with you guys over the years.
That's right.
So I'm in New Zealand, and I'm working as I'm actually a student counselor. I was a pastoral counselor for a number of years, and now I'm making it official. Just finishing. I'll actually be done in October, and I'll be what you would call in the U.S. a licensed counselor.
Okay.
We don't do licensure here, but okay, close enough. And I work predominantly with women whose husbands have a pornography or sexual addiction, or who have been sex offenders, and I give those women support. But I also work with, we were just talking about the fact I work with moms whose kids are struggling, and it could be around pornography, could be around devices and video games. But there's often a generational thing there we were just talking about. Because sometimes the problem is the dad had this legacy, and it's kind of getting passed into the next generation. So that's the two main groups that I work with. I've studied with Barb Steffens, who you guys have interviewed. She's a one. I have often said when I grow up I want to be like Barb Steffens. She's a wonderful woman, and she's the founder of this field of partner of sex addict trauma specialists.
Right.
And
yes.
That will be one of the resources that I would say to women who are looking for counselors and coaches, check out that website. And so we'll probably talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do here in New Zealand. Speaking, writing. I was a writer. I was an author before I did any of this stuff. So used to write for young people, and now I write for the women that I'm working with.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that introduction, Lisa. And throughout this conversation, you and maybe I will point to some resources. Those are going to be linked in the Facebook Live session if you're watching that. So if you're worried about writing those down and find them yourself, you don't need to worry about that. We'll make sure those are really easy to get to. And so, Lisa, you spoke about the fact that you now primarily work with spouses. And you pointed to a situation that these spouses are in. There's this upward brokenness towards their husband in trying to figure out, how do I process this revelation of maybe it's secretive or maybe I always knew, but how do I deal with that? I've got my own sort of complexities and emotions and recovery to now figure out. And wait a minute, from time to time, I've got my kid. I mean, you talk about being somebody stuck in the middle. I'm going up, I'm in myself, I'm looking down, and what a horribly complex, emotional, difficult position for these women to be in. I'm sure that you could share for hours, if not days, on stories and experiences helping women in that place. But maybe as an encouragement for someone who feels like they're in that really tough spot, what are some real basic but helpful things that you would want to share with that person?
Yeah. The first thing, my mentor, Donna Meredith Dixon, who trains peer facilitators to run groups for women, in one of the first chapters, excuse me, one of the first chapters of her book, she talks about, don't forget to put your oxygen mask on. When you're on the plane, they tell you if in case of an emergency, the oxygen masks will drop, and you want to just get in there and get it on your child, but put your own oxygen mask on too.
Yeah.
Because you can't help anybody. Excuse me, it's winter here, and I clearly have a bit of a cold. You can't help anybody if you yourself aren't coping.
Yeah.
And as women, we're frequently, especially looking to our kids to make sure they're okay in the midst of this.
Yes.
But there's a lot of women too that want to walk with their husband in this. If he's really seeking that help and support, they want to be there for him, and that's all good. But you need to be there for you, because I come from a Christian perspective. That's my view in the world, and I see, we're God's daughters. He loves us. He wants us to be well for us too, and then we can be the best that we can be.
That's right.
So that's gonna, for a lot of women, because this can feel like such a shameful journey. And it can feel so overwhelming. We know now that the majority of partners, when they discover my husband's using porn, or some other type of sexual acting out, they experience that as trauma.
Right.
They feel like their world is falling apart. They feel terrified.
That's right. Yeah.
And it can feel really difficult to go out into the world and find help when you just want to withdraw and shut down, in some ways even deny what's going on.
Sure.
Maybe it'll go away, and maybe we can just deal with this, just you and I, husband and I, we can work this out.
Right.
But it's almost always going to involve going out. So women usually feel safest starting with online, and the cool thing is, wherever you are in the world, if you're English speaking, or if you know how to translate English pages into your language, you're going to get, you can find resources.
That's right.
And I do actually recommend Covenant's Eyes resources regularly. You guys cover a whole broad spectrum. And women are often looking not only for answers about me and my journey, I find they're often looking for, I need to understand this porn addiction thing. I need to understand, what is this thing? What's this drug?
Sure.
And you guys read a lot of stories on that. When I ask women, because I have a community blog, and I tell women regularly, send in your questions, and I'll send it out to experts in the field to answer. More than half the questions I get will be about his recovery, about the addiction. We want that knowledge to begin to get a grasp on this thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So
the quantitative, the tangible, the scientific, that's easier than processing the emotions behind it. So as a first step, and I don't pretend to understand all of the female mind, so I'm not trying to project myself there as a man, But I have to imagine that's an easier place to begin before diving into the complexities of all the emotions behind that. So
That's right. It feels less threatening.
it does.
And also it helps to answer what is often the number one burning question behind all of this searching is, are we going to make it? I want to know, can he get better?
Yeah.
Are we going to make it?
Okay. Wow.
And that's a big question, and it's sadly there is no blog, there is no counselor that can tell you definitively
Right.
yes or no. But we can say there's a lot of hope. There's heaps of hope when your husband's engaged in the healing process, that he can find freedom and
That's
healing.
right.
It's not a pretty journey. It's a very messy journey.
Yeah.
But there's also the whole you story in that, right? There's also, can you get the help you need to move past your trauma, so this isn't the place you live in for the rest of your life, where everything feels dangerous, where everything feels threatening, and it's hard to manage your emotions.
Yeah.
There's stages that you can move through as well. And if at the end of that you're both together, you're going to have a fantastic marriage.
That's right.
My husband was here actually at the beginning when Chris and I were getting set up, and we
Yep.
were sharing a little bit about having celebrated our 8th year anniversary last week of being on this journey. And that it's been a whole crazy journey because it was going on while we were immigrating. And it was really intense.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I mean, routers were flying at one point. That would have been me. It was really intense.
Messy.
And
Yeah.
we were both told by counselors our marriage wasn't going to make it. He was
Wow.
told by one of his counselors here, and I was told by one as well. You should just leave him. It doesn't look like there's any hope.
Wow.
Yeah, which funny now as a counselor, it's like I would never say that to a client.
I know.
Never. But that's how it looked on the outside, and now is what we were speaking and using a lot of your tools from Protect Young Eyes at a church recently, and part of the feedback we got was how beautifully we work together and how clear our love is for each other as we work now to minister in this area.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was beautiful feedback for us, so that there is absolutely hope.
There is.
But that doesn't mean that every marriage is going to survive either.
No, it doesn't.
Or that, and even for those separating and divorcing, sometimes that is temporary. I have seen women separate, divorce 6-7 years, and then he got the healing. There was the repentance, there was the restoration and the making amends, and the forgiveness, the grieving together, and a beautiful thing came out of that couldn't have come about outside that journey.
That's right. Wow, there's so much there, Lisa, that you shared, and thank you for that. One of the key phrases that you used a few minutes ago was the question that women are asking is, are we going to make it? I think the pronoun there is so important because of the work that you do, we. It's not, is he going to make it? And let's be honest, the church often treats this as his issue. And let's just call that out, and ignores the her part of it, ignores the whole we part of this. And so there is no healing without we coming through this together. If he gets his accountability and he gets his covenant eyes and he figures things out, and I'm not taking care of myself as the spouse, I think that's what we read in the blog comments and other places, is too many women don't feel as though they have the permission to be on recovery, to care for themselves. And so thankful for individuals like you and so many others who are giving women that permission to be a part of that we journey and not just his journey. So I think that's a key word for, I want women who are listening to this or maybe sharing this to understand that you have permission to care for yourself in this. And you would agree with that, Lisa, I know. So
Absolutely. And I know we had a little back and forth once about a conversation because a lot of women go through spiritual crisis on this journey. because of some of the messages that come out of the church.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, a lot of times people just
I know.
aren't thinking about it. It's just ignorance.
It is.
Because they don't have a lot of experience. And I had done a study. I'd done a survey as part of the book that I ended up writing for partners in the end, and it was just on spiritual crisis and what that was looking like for women. And we can have our own internal spiritual crisis around, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? I've served you really faithfully. I've worked on this marriage. But the majority of women, their spiritual crisis was around feeling betrayed by the church, feeling blamed by the church, being actively blamed by the church.
Wow.
Being told things like, you just need to forgive him and move on.
Right.
You just need to, your job is to support him in his recovery.
Yeah.
And I don't get that from the Bible. I don't get anywhere where God says you've been victimized, because again, the husband, his intent wasn't to victimize his wife, but that's the result, is that he's left her with the message of you're not enough. And he's cultivated those own sentiments, because that's one of the effects of porn is to gravitate toward others and to objectify women, not to honor the beautiful covenant of the marriage.
Right.
And so she's left in this position of having been victimized by his choices, his behaviors, and the church is saying, get over it and go help him.
That's right.
God is about the restoration of the one who is hurt and the one who's hurting, but that's not the way that it happens. It happens by, repentance, by a willingness to make restitution, and by acknowledgement, by the community acknowledging you have been grievously wounded by this person. Yeah. And often that's all women are looking for from the church, is just that acknowledgement.
Yeah, sure. And
if we can do that right, and let her forgive in her own time as God takes her on that journey.
That's right. Right.
That could avoid a lot of spiritual crisis.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember that exchange that we had very clearly about a blog post with some of those comments that seemed to be shifting burden toward her and not giving her that permission to be on her own journey. And so that's where I think we take for granted the significance of some of those words and those statements. I think it's just helpful to know what we should and shouldn't be saying in those situations. So with that as sort of a starting point, what are some very specific resources? If someone's watching this and going, okay, Lisa, you're speaking my language, that's where I'm at, but what next? I'm paralyzed. What do I do next? Where would you point that person specifically? And these are some things that, we can point to in the comment section of Facebook Live.
Yeah. So, go to Covenant Eyes, look at their resources. Come to my website as well. I've got a resources page as well, same as you guys.
Yeah.
Really honed in for the wife, though.
Right.
So anything I'm about to mention, I'll definitely say there. Barb Steffen's original book was the one that, and I'll say it, I think it pretty much saved my life at one point.
Yeah.
So, that's an important book if you're into reading. I've really enjoyed this book in the past year by Lynn Marie Cherry, which is a devotional.
Okay.
And I think does a beautiful job of helping us get in touch with those emotions.
Sure.
That feel really painful and working those out. And she's a pastor in Texas and has a beautiful heart. So these are mostly Christian resources, I admit, that I'm talking about.
Yep, that's great.
There's my book as well, which deals with this whole thing from it's a high-level overview from a Christian perspective. Dr. Sherry Keffer has done a book that's, again, an overview, but probably it's more in depth, and also from a Christian perspective. Kevin Skinner has recently come out with a book. So these are all a good place to start where you don't feel too committed yet.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I would encourage women to think about groups after that. And if a group feels at all safe, there's face-to-face groups. So if you come to I'm part of a group called Christian Sex Addiction Specialists International. Our website is csassy.org, and we have some pages where you can locate therapists, where you can locate group leaders. Just see, is there a face-to-face group running in your area? Is there a group leader?
Okay.
If not, there are some amazing online groups right now that are being run. Betrayal Trauma Recovery,
Right.
BTR.org.
We love them. Yes.
That's right. So you guys have interviewed those guys, Galen Emerson in particular. She runs some groups specifically for women whose marriages are ending in as part of this
Yeah.
season, because it does happen, and those women need very particular support.
Yes.
They're running groups daily for women that need something more than once a week. The Circle of Joy is running groups, and some really specific ones. And Coach Catherine is one of their leaders, and she's a former pastor's wife. Sometimes pastors' wives or people in kind of high-profile positions, it feels kind of dicey joining a group because of the potential exposure. And I think Catherine can feel pretty safe for somebody in that position. And she's quite a brilliant coach and group leader. So, I would recommend some of their stuff.
Excellent.
And they do themed groups. So if you need more on boundaries, they do one just on boundaries, for example.
Excellent.
Yeah, so there are online groups, and that is easier for you guys in North America because these are mostly being run in North American time zones.
Sure.
But if there's anybody listening today, I mean, Coach Catherine is in the UK, opposite side of the world from me.
Sure.
There's a couple of trained coaches trained with APSATs in the UK. There's one therapist running women's groups as well.
Okay.
In London. So far, I'm really talking about English language stuff. I think Barb's book's been translated into French. It is something that we need. I appreciate that, Chris, that you are always translating stuff into Spanish as well. I noticed your video resources.
Yeah, sure.
We need more non-English language resources. It is, and it's coming to our attention more and more.
Absolutely.
My Donna Meredith Dixon, who I already mentioned, with the Door of Hope, she was contacted by somebody in Egypt who wants to start running groups for wives there. I know there's APSATS has trained somebody who's running groups in Singapore. I run groups here in New Zealand when I'm not in school, so I will again next year run online groups. So, contact APSATS, contact me wherever you are in the world if you're thinking, group's the next thing.
Yeah, for sure.
There will be obviously some people for whom group doesn't seem the right thing, counseling or coaching. There are women trained specifically and men trained specifically through APSATS, and that is the best organization that I've found that is teaching people how to walk with people on this journey. And if you don't come from a faith background and that doesn't feel comfortable, there's coaches and counselors who are absolutely still get this from the same trauma perspective, who will walk with you through that.
Excellent.
At CSASI, we've got a list of APSATS practitioners who, though, specifically identify as Christian. So if that's your background and you want to know who on that list is Christian, we've got that list.
Excellent. So, that's great. So much there. I think the key, and it was on the devotional that you showed, is to do something or to keep walking, right? To make forward movement. So whether it's reading, just to inform, you pointed to some of the ebooks or hard copy books that you can find, being in community with others who have walked through it or can help a group of women walk through it, and you pointed to some of those, or one-on-one. The point is that there isn't a prescription, there isn't A plus B plus C equals D to this kind of recovery, but the point is to do something. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you can do something as a couple, that's great. And if that's the case, I would say check out Jason and Shelley Martinkus's resources. They've got a video series for couples. That's, you can walk together, but ladies, don't let that, if your husband's not there and isn't doing that walk, don't let that hold you back from getting the healing that you so rightly deserve.
Definitely. I think Covenant Eyes have tried to be very consistent on that self-care message, whether it's through you or Ella Hutchinson or Kay Bruner, all who are very much in the you need to be cared for and have permission to do that. And so we are absolutely on the same page, and very much all on the on the message of we do believe that that there's always hope. And to not give up, and there are days where it's going to be messy and horrible, and you're not going to want to get up and take another step, but to just press on. And I also come from a Christian faith background, and so to depend on that faith when there's nothing else is sometimes all that you can do in a day. And I know that you can relate to that too, Lisa. And so my hope is that there's somebody listening to this today who maybe started the day hopeless, who maybe has a bit of hopefulness, knowing that you're not alone, that there are others out there, there are resources for you, and to just keep walking. We want that for anybody who's listening today. So, Lisa, I'd like to close us here. Is there anything last that you'd like to share with anybody who's listening right now or watching?
I would just thank you, all the people who are working in this field, all the people that are working with the porn addicts, the sex addicts, and all the women. You know, it's an amazing field to be working in, and I'm sorry I couldn't mention all of you.
Yeah,
because
sure.
You're all amazing people. And just keep up the good work, Covenant Eyes.
Yeah, thank you. Well, likewise, Lisa. We are joined globally here in our efforts to help as many people as possible live porn-free or recover from some of the trauma from that. So thank you so much for your work. Thank you for those who have joined us today. Please stay close to what we're doing here on Facebook, whether it's through our regular posts or through our almost weekly Facebook Live sessions that we have. We're just thankful that you're able to benefit from this information. And any comments or questions you have, we're always open to that feedback. Maybe there's a resource that you haven't seen. Reach out to us and let us know. We're connected to so many people all over the world, like Lisa and many others, that we'd love to connect you with the right resource. Even if it's not ours, we're not in the business of pointing all to our own stuff. We just want to point to the right stuff for you. And so if you're looking for something, please let us know. But I'm Chris from Covenant Eyes. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everyone, wherever you might be, has a good rest of your day, evening,